So the weekly campaign missions for the Witch Queen and Lightfall are some of the best drop rates for Ascendant alloys, one of the only places you can get common drop rates. We've got Solar and Arc Surging with overcharged weapons this week with Void Threat. I'm using a Prismatic Warlock build here that you can get this mission done if you're solo in less than 30 minutes, casually speaking in a fire team 10 to 20 minutes. So it's pretty good. We're using Arcane Needle, Nova Bomb, Storm Grenade so that we can get our Arc Soul up with our Bleak Watcher, Feed the Void, Facet of Protection, Facet of Balance, Facet of Ruin, Facet of Courage, and Facet of Dawn. Stat distribution is as follows here, focused on Resilience and Discipline primarily. Midnight Coup with Explosive Payload and Kinetic Tremors. Buried Bloodline with the Slammer, with Cold Steel and Eager Edge, and of course Getaway Artist. And our combat mods here are mainly focused on generating Orbs of Power and Ammo. You can take a look at the seasonal artifact there as well. All right, so a little bit of farming advice. If you're going to farm this, I mean, one of the reasons that you might want to farm it is because you're running out of Ascendant alloys, obviously. It's pretty much the only reason to do this. You're not getting any pinnacle drops, you're not getting any enhancement prisms or shards or anything like that, but you do get basically a 50-50 shot at getting Ascendant alloys. And since the final shape released post Into the Light, post Onslaught, well, I mean, if you played Onslaught and you did a lot of Legend 50 wave runs, you probably went into the final shape with, you know, capped out alloys at 30 if you're like me, and then with the release of the final shape you probably exhausted them all pretty quickly, and now you might be scratching your head at how to get more Ascendant alloys, and you've probably got a backlog of weapons just waiting to be enhanced, but you can't do it because you don't have the resources to do it. I know there's a lot of people in the game that have a ton of enhancement cores stacked up. I think previous to my time in the game there was an exploit where you can just stack like unlimited cores. But I mean, a lot of people don't have those kind of resources. But if you do have a lot of cores, obviously you can trade 100 enhancement cores for one single alloy, right? You can use you can spend your cores at Raoul to buy prisms to buy alloys, right? So it's either 10 prisms for one alloy or 100 cores for one alloy, right? Because it's 10 cores for one prism. So you can farm up alloys if you're resource rich just by trading resources at Raoul. But otherwise, you know, you're going to want to do these weekly missions or some other mission in the game where you can get Ascendant alloys regularly. And I've found that just going back to these weekly Witch Queen missions and Lightfall missions, depending on the mission for the week, it's a pretty good way to do it. I've done all of this farming on LFG. Of course, I'm doing a solo flawless run here, just to show you like the efficiency of the build, right? If you can do it solo and in decent time, then I'd say it's a build that you can take into a farming session with a fire team. So yeah, the Cunning is a pretty good mission to do this week. It's it's not like a long mission, and one of the things that it has going for it is it's a relatively easy and straightforward platinum ranking. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of missions that if you're doing these on LFG and a fire team, people tend to just speed run them, right? Because that is kind of like the whole idea behind farming, is to just get it done quickly. But the problem is, you know, when you're on no mic with randoms, people just skip over champions sometimes without realizing it, or without, you know, having the knowledge that you can't just skip over champs. Because if you do that, then you don't get a platinum ranking, and then your chances of getting an Ascendant alloy are far less, right? So you definitely want to kill all the champions, right? And so with the Cunning, pretty much all of the champions are going to be in your face, and they're going to be, you know, they're hard to miss, basically. Except for this one section right here. Actually, there's 2 unstoppables, and one of them used to spawn on the bridge there where I had my rift down and threw my first transcendent grenade. Sometimes he spawns over there, sometimes he spawns at the portal across the bridge. But I noticed in my farming sessions this week that the second unstoppable, or the first, however you want to look at it, was spawning way at the back. So look, I'm gonna go find him, right? Because I know, well actually, and you can't, I don't think you can get past this section without killing that unstoppable. So it's not even really a consideration for, it's not something that you have to worry about, you know, failing your platinum run because of this section, because you literally can't get through the door until you kill this unstop. So look, he's all the way back here. I don't know what's going on with the spawns. It's always been a buggy spawn for this unstop, but now for some reason in the final shape he's spawning all the way back here. So yeah, so my advice would be to like just create a Fireteam finder post. No mic. Like if you're efficient at doing this solo, which hopefully you can be by using a build like this and watching this gameplay, then you can just carry people through it, and they're going to help you get it done faster anyways. As long as they're not ruining your platinum rewards, then definitely do it with a Fireteam. I've found that people are still, like, if you go onto Fireteam Finder, you just create the post, and obviously you create it for the weekly mission, right, on master difficulty, and then for your tags, just keep it short. Like a lot of the Fireteam Finder posts, there's so many tags and titles there that you can't even read them all if you're scanning through there. So just put farming, earn ascendant alloys. That's it, 2 tags. And I've found that doing these over the past couple weeks, that usually somebody is going to join within 5 to 10 minutes. And then once one person joins, you could start the mission, right? You only need 2 people to start it. I mean, technically you could start it solo and then invite whoever joins your Fireteam Finder post as you're progressing through it. Right, because they will spawn in, and you know, you'll have to res them, or they'll just wait out their timer and they'll catch up with you. So this is kind of the nice thing about using Fireteam Finder here, is you could just casually go through it solo and invite people as they come, and it's pretty good. So I've found that once you get one person in there, usually somebody else is going to join, and I've been able to maintain these farming sessions for, like, you know, a whole gaming session for me, which is sometimes, you know, anywhere from 1 to 3 hours or something like that, or however long I have the patience to farm these. I found that the drop rates are about 50-50, and so if you can get these done in 15 minutes, then you're basically getting alloys every half hour. Like, you can basically count on at least 2 alloys per hour, if not more, which is going to, you know, allow you to fully enhance a certain, you know, whatever weapon you want. So that's my advice for farming the weekly missions. Now, with the Cunning, we've got some things to consider here for our build, right? It's not just like, oh, let's put together a build and then just take it into a mission because, you know, the build is good, nothing to worry about. I always build craft around the mission, right? So that is my style of build crafting. Like, I know a lot of people just do videos on builds in a vacuum, and then, you know, they show a little bit of gameplay from different types of PvE missions and raids, dungeons, whatever. But, you know, there's modifiers and there's considerations for every single mission. So I like to consider the mission first and then build craft second. So the reason I came up with this build here is because, well, we've got Scorn, right? This is a Scorn mission. So we've got tons of Void shields. We've got Void threat on top of, you know, actually taking a lot of Void damage because Scorn deal Void. We've got the captains that spawn, or whatever they are, they're like the overloads. They spawn immunity totems. They tether each other, and the overloads tend to spawn in pairs in this mission, which is unique to the Cunning. It's actually quite interesting because it can create quite a challenge when you get double overloads. Because they're both spawning totems and tethering each other and all the enemies around them. So like, it can make it impossible to take them out until you've taken out all the other enemies, or you know, immediately take out their totem, and then you can take out the 2 overloads. But you have to kind of nuke them, or at least get rid of one of them to make it easier. Because otherwise they're just gonna kill you because you can't get past them. We've also got unstoppable champions here, and some normal orange bar ogres, right? So they all deal arc damage in this case. So I think I am running arc resistance here on top of void resistance with concussive dampener. Obviously you want to have void first, maybe even go double void, but I would recommend for your second resist mod that you just go with arc because of the ogres, right? And Screebs, right? I think the Screebs do arc damage as well, and we've got the Ahamkara section. I think it's an Ahamkara, the worm, like the worm boss, where you got to shoot it in the mouth. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, there's going to be a lot of Screebs there dealing arc damage, so that's one thing to consider as well. Now, as far as speaking on Screebs, what's a good way that we can take out Screebs? Arc Soul, right? Like think of going through the swamp in Light Blade. Obviously you got to have your head on a swivel, and like if you don't have radar, in this case we do have radar, so I mean that's helping us a bit, but the Screebs tend to sneak up on you, and so having something like an Arc Soul can help you, because it can literally kill the Screebs like when you didn't even notice them, right? It's got your back. Same thing goes for Bleak Watcher, right? And that's the whole principle behind the Getaway Artist setup, is you have your Arc Soul, you have your Bleak Watcher, you have your double turrets. One's doing crowd control and dark damage, slowing, freezing, stunning unstops, stunning overload champions, and then your Arc Soul is dealing all kinds of light damage. So this is just a really good prismatic setup for building up your Transcendence and passive damage with crowd control. Right, so, and then another thing that we want to consider for this mission, so what damage types do we need, right? Like I said, we've got a lot of void shields to deal with, so ideally we want some type of void damage that we can use regularly and consistently, hence Buried Bloodline here, as well as Nova Bomb, but Nova Bomb is more so tailored to nuking the double overloads. Then we've also got our surges for the week. So ideally, because we can't overcharge our abilities, right? We can overcharge our weapons. I can use a void weapon in an arc and solar surge week because Buried Bloodline is overcharged, right? So it's still getting the 25% damage buff. But as far as our damage abilities go, ideally we match the weekly surge there, right? So because we've got solar and arc, we might want to use solar or arc, so hence we've got Arc Soul, which is benefiting from the weekly surge, right? And then as far as the other elements that we can use here, stasis, in my opinion, is just the best subclass element to use when it comes to unstoppables and ogres, right? If you've got a mission where you've got unstops and ogres, stasis is going to cover all your bases very easily. Use any weapon with chill clip, your Bleak Watcher turrets, just a slow, like an immediate slow, is going to take care of overloads, and then freezing an unstop and shattering it is gonna stun it. So stasis is very good for that. So you know, that was obviously another consideration here for using Bleak Watcher. And then, like I said, everywhere else, we just make sure that we're using our overcharged weapons because we want to use Void here because of the Void shields, and for other reasons, then just make sure that we can overcharge that weapon somehow, right? So leading into our weapons here, we've also got Midnight Coup, right, which is a kinetic weapon from Into the Light. It is a hand cannon, so it means that we can put overload, the overload modifier on it, which means that we can overcharge Midnight Coup, right, because it's not matching our super, and because our super isn't matching the surge, it means that we need to have a champion mod basically on there to get it to have that extra damage buff, but also because we want to use it to obviously stun overloads as well, right? So we've got our stasis turret, we've got our hand cannon, and we've got our sword. We've got multiple ways of stunning overload champions, including our transcendent grenade, because that also slows. But Midnight Coup is super good for endgame content like this on master difficulty, which is basically grandmaster, right? It's -20 versus -25. There's like hardly any difference between master and grandmaster. The only thing that's sometimes master can actually be even more difficult because we have different modifiers like attrition and whatnot. They did get rid of the those modifiers though, those weekly modifiers like attrition, togetherness, whatever one, I can't remember all the other ones. There was like famine, right? They got rid of those on the weekly campaign missions, but still, nonetheless, like you're not really going to notice a difference between master and grandmaster. So you definitely want to consider, you know, your god rolls, whatever your god roll is. You want to make sure that that's going to be suitable for end game activities, right? So Midnight Coup has explosive payload on it and kinetic tremors. This is very good for stunning champions because the explosive payload can collaterally stun overload. So even if I don't hit the overload, I can shoot it around a corner. I can also use the hand cannon from long range and, you know, damage enemies that are hiding around corners, which does happen in this mission. And then the kinetic tremors, same thing. Once we proc that tremor on an enemy, it's going to do collateral damage, which means that it can proc more stuns on overloads. And the kinetic tremors are just insanely good. Like I feel like kinetic tremors is, a lot of people realize, I think they know that it is a good perk, but just how good is it really? It's super good. Like I could have just wasted maybe, you know, 10 plus buried bloodline shots there, and you know, we have finite special ammo, right? So do I really want to waste like a quarter of my reserves shooting a champion with buried bloodline? Or I can just pull out my primary weapon, proc kinetic tremors, and basically get the champion killed within like 3 tremors or so. So it's very good. So we got this boss here. He can one-shot you, this sniper. Notice there that I threw my arcane needle at it first so that I can proc Facet of Courage, right? So if I hit an enemy with a darkness debuff, then my light abilities will do 10% more damage. So anytime I want to use my Nova Bomb, or even my Arc Soul for that matter, getting that darkness debuff out there is going to increase the damage from all those light abilities, right? So then we've got Buried Bloodline, right? So I mean, this is giving us Devour. It's weakening enemies. It's a rocket sidearm. It is the OG exotic rocket sidearm. I mean, you just can't go wrong with this thing. You can use it like a primary weapon, right? So my combat mod setup here is to, when I get finishers, I can produce special ammo. So if I ever am running low, which is hardly ever because special ammo generates fairly frequently regardless. But yeah, you can use this thing like a hard-hitting primary, and you know, it's taking care of all the considerations in this mission for us, as well as giving us Devour, so it's giving us heals, right? So we've got Feed the Void, right, for one of our aspects, and Feed the Void for Warlock gives us the best type of Devour. It gives us a full heal on kills while Devour is procced, and it gives us, I think it gives us more grenade energy than base Devour, right? So all the other subclasses, any build that does not have Feed the Void, if you get Devour on those classes, you do not have the optimal Devour. You just have, like, you get half your health back, you get a bit of grenade energy. Warlocks have the best Devour with Feed the Void, so that's why I'm using that here. And you could say, well, you don't need Feed the Void because you've got Buried Bloodline to give you Devour. But like I just said, if we just were using Buried Bloodline, then we'd only get half of our health back on kills instead of full heals, right? So this is just Feed the Void is actually making Buried Bloodline better, right? So we're getting more consistent Devour from our abilities, and we're getting better Devour all around, right? Regardless of what procs Devour. Next weapon here, heavy ammo. For our heavy, we're using the Slammer. So swords are pretty good right now, and the Slammer with Cold Steel has the ability to stun overloads. And I do find that swords are a good overload counter. Like sometimes using it, like I wouldn't want to use an unstoppable sword if we had such a thing, and technically the Slammer can be viewed as an unstoppable sword because you can freeze and shatter enemies with Cold Steel, but I wouldn't recommend it because you get too close to the unstoppable, and once it's, you know, out of its staggered mode, then it can just slam you and one-shot you. Whereas with the overloads, you can get them pre-stunned, and then you can go in there and just consistently slow them with the slammer and get rid of them fairly quickly. They're not as threatening as an unstoppable up close, so they're pretty good. It's pretty good for that. I've also got Eager Edge on this one. This is basically my utility Eager Edge sword that I use for mobility and raids and dungeons and elsewhere, farming the Pale Heart and stuff like that. But just having Cold Steel makes it very endgame viable as well, right? And having that vortex frame, I find it's pretty good for the pairs of overloads. There was a few times in my farming sessions where I was able to, just get right into the middle of the double overloads and the, hack and slash back and forth between the two, and then unleash a heavy swing, and that heavy swing collateral is hitting both the overloads at the same time. So pretty good. For the Ahamkara here, I just strafe back and forth, and even though you could basically nuke its health gate right to the next bar and have it go away and spawn out the next enemies, there's actually spawns of enemies at the halfway point between each health gate, right? So if you take out this guy slowly, then you'll notice, like, you'll get more gradual spawns of enemies instead of like 2 or 3 spawns all at once, which is going to make the onslaught of Screebs and Ogres and Scorn Captains much more manageable if you just take it out slowly. So yeah. Now, as far as the build goes, abilities, stuff like that, obviously, we've talked about Bleak Watcher, Feed the Void. We've got Arc Grenade. I've seen somebody make a video talking about Getaway Artist on Prismatic, saying, oh, you can go with Vortex Grenade or this grenade or that grenade. I'm pretty sure you have to have an Arc Grenade to make Arc Soul work, right? Because I think the definition of Arc Soul or a Getaway Artist is consuming your Arc Grenade gives you an Arc Soul, right? So you have to have Storm Grenade, right? At least that's my understanding. We've also got Arcane Needle here. So Arcane Needle is just too good to pass up on Prismatic Warlock, in my opinion, just due to the fact that you have a ranged melee that applies a darkness debuff. It does AoE with Unravel, and it allows you, it is literally the best melee to pair with Facet of Dawn for getting Radiant. So especially outside of this season where we don't have things like Radiant Orbs to get, extra Radiant, you're going to rely on your melee to get Radiant on Prismatic builds, and Warlock is basically going to be king of that because you have 3 needles that you can use at any range to get Radiant. So instead of having just 5 or 6 seconds with one melee charge of Radiant on Prismatic Warlock, you can get 15 to whatever, 18, I think it's 5 or 6 seconds that you get of Radiant, right? So you can get like 15 to 18 seconds of Radiant on Warlock if you have all 3 of your Arcane Needles. So pretty good there. We're using Facet of Protection here just because this is endgame, right? So we want that, I think it's 25% damage resistance while you're surrounded by enemies, which is, a lot. You'll notice on the left side of my screen for the buffs there that we've pretty much always got protection up, helping us survive. It's just one of those fragments that I don't think I've ever taken it off a single one of my builds, even in even farming the Pale Heart and easier activities. I just don't, I'd rather not die. We're using Facet of Balance here because it just works really well for this build. So Facet of Balance gives you melee energy from dark damage, or no, melee energy from light damage, and dark, you get grenade energy from dark damage. So just the whole virtue of Getaway Artist, Prismatic Getaway Artist build with Bleak Watcher and Arc Soul, you've immediately got 2 turrets, 1 dark, 1 light. Not only they're building up your Transcendence, but they're also working together to proc Facet of Balance to give you more grenade and melee energy, right? And then we're using Buried Bloodline for light damage as well, to give us more Arcane Needles, or Arc Soul, like I said. The Unravel, right? So just the AoE from the Arcane Needle, because that Unravel can spread. You kill an unraveled enemy, the little green needles spread all over the place. And then we've got Shatter damage too from Stasis. So we've got lots of dark damage. We're also using Facet of Courage here. So I went into it a little bit, but yeah, Facet of Courage gives you a 10% buff to your light abilities when you apply a darkness debuff, so this is very easy to do. Like I said, we've got our Bleak Watcher turret, we've got our Arcane Needle, and obviously the Slammer as well with Cold Steel can apply that darkness debuff. Our Transcendent Grenade applies a darkness debuff. So that's just boosting our Nova Bomb and our Arc Soul, which is fairly, is up very consistently. Facet of Torches, like I just went over for synergizing with Arcane Needle, giving us Radiant, giving us that extra 10% damage on our weapons. Also allowing you to pierce enemy shields, and we do have some Scorn Raiders here with their shields, so that's kind of nice to use there. And then the fifth and final fragment that I'm using is Facet of Ruin. And I find that Facet of Ruin is definitely a more essential damage fragment to pick on stasis builds or stasis effects, more so than solar. Because the thing is, with Facet of Ruin, it increases your ignition size, right? But it doesn't increase ignition damage. So it's not necessarily like doing a whole lot for solar. Plus we've got Solar Fulmination, which just like overshadows Facet of Ruin anyways. But on stasis builds specifically, Facet of Ruin increases shatter damage and the size of the shatter, right? So it's very good on stasis builds. I've noticed a huge difference in testing out various builds. If you're going to be doing a lot of slowing and freezing and shattering, then you might want to consider Facet of Ruin, right? So that's what I'm using here. But if you wanted to, make your Transcendence all that much better, then you can go with Facet of Dominance, right? I think it's Dominance, the one that gives your Void Grenades weaken, right? So that applies to your Transcendent Grenade as well, because it's Void. You'll apply Weaken, and then your Transcendence will be even better. And if you don't feel like using your Arc Soul and you just want to throw your Storm Grenade out, you can have a Jolting Storm Grenade, right? Which could be very good if you've just got like a single champion up or something like that, and you just want to throw your grenade at long range for a more immediate effect. You can double dip into Facet of Dominance with your Storm Grenade and your Transcendent Grenade for extra weaken. Right, so that's pretty much it for the build rundown here. I'm actually closing in on the end. So you'll notice here that I saved my Super and my Transcendence for this section because we're on a timer here, and the end is actually very difficult. So I actually just drive through all these enemies because you can do it very easily, even if you have to slow down to make it through these swinging pendulums. If the pendulums hit you, they don't kill you anyway. I mean, they can knock you off the map, they can slow you down, and then you can get shot up by the enemies. But generally speaking, you can zoom through this entire section. You're going to want to get off right here. This is actually critical, right? Even in a fire team, you'll get lots of wipes here. So I get off right here, immediately get my Bleak Watcher out and my Arc Soul, and take care of all these enemies. You got plenty of time. There's like, what, 2 minutes on the timer here? So get rid of all these guys, because if not, they're just going to come and shoot you in the back. So here we can get down another Bleak Watcher and an Arc Soul. We can pop Transcendence, and these double overloads, right? This is our key to getting platinum here. We do not want to bypass them. We have to kill them, and we have to kill them fast, and we have to do it efficiently, because they're going to spawn their totems and tether each other, right? So take out the enemies, take out the totem, get that stun off. We can do it with our Transcendent Grenade like I just did there. Then Nova Bomb them, and then just go in and swing with your Slammer, and you should be able to take care of both of them, right? So that's pretty much it for the build. And I think I did get lucky and get an Ascendant Alloy here. So let me know what you think in the comments. I'm always happy to talk to you guys in the comments, and see what I can cook up next for another build. Hope you enjoyed that solo flawless gameplay and build breakdown, and I will see you next time. Take care.